Welcome back to DBO. On today's episode, I'm going to show you how to remove all the rockers and cam and pretty much all the guts out of an M20 head in preparation for getting it cleaned and machined. Pretty easy job, pretty straightforward. I know it looks pretty daunting, but don't get intimidated. It's actually not too bad, and you can do it with tools that you've got at your house. Before I do anything, what I'm going to do, or what I have done, is elevate the head, and I paid very close attention to which cylinders had valves open and which did not. Okay, so I tried to place my blocks in here so that the valves weren't taking any of the support of laying on the head. And actually, it looks like I missed one of them by a little bit, so we're going to readjust that a little bit and then we'll get right back to it. But what you can do is just put two boards on either side, right here and right here, so that way it holds the head. But you do not want to rest the head with a cam in it or with rockers in it on a table. So if the valves are open and you're resting it on the table, you're doing damage. Don't do that. Okay, so let's get to it. Removing the cam gear. First thing you're going to do, E12 Torx. It's that easy. Comes right off. You're going to want to organize all your parts. I also, if you're just taking your head off to get cleaned and machined, get it surfaced, if you take very close attention and organize well, you can actually get away with not doing a valve clearance. Usually you're going to want to check it, but if you organize all your rockers in order off of what valves they came off of, a lot of times you can get away without doing it, but I would still recommend checking it. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and remove the cam gear here. You want to be very gentle while doing this. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth until it decides it wants to come free. This one is being a little stubborn. Okay, so got the cam gear off with a little bit of wiggling. Go ahead and set that down. And you don't need to worry about orientation on that other than what's in and what's out, but it only fits one way because of the alignment dowel. So go ahead and put that aside. Next thing we're going to do is remove the retainer plate for the rocker shafts, which is this right here. It basically keeps the shafts from spinning or from sliding out. So you're going to want to get a flathead screwdriver, magically appearing off the ground. And then just kind of pry up, and this is what it looks like. Again, orientation is not important on this. It will fit either way. So we're going to go ahead and set that aside. Next thing we're going to want to do is remove your half moon seals, which you can usually just pop out with your fingers. I would recommend replacing this if you're removing them. They're very cheap. They're like $2. So just buy new ones. Set those aside. So these are rocker shaft seals is what those are called. There's another set on the back, so let's get these out as well. Okay, so next thing we want to do is remove the rocker retainers, which are these guys here. They just pull straight up, so right there, and this is the orientation. So they're flipped. Okay, so intake and exhaust basically face each other. So these holes go towards each other. They're all that way, and these ones are all that way. Okay, and this is the intake side right here. In case you guys are wondering, you can tell because the thermostat housing bolts right here. So intake, if you are standing on the exhaust side, the intake rockers, retainers, all face to the right. If this makes sense, hole goes to the right. So we're going to go ahead and take these off. These are not valve specific. You can take them off and they can go on any other rocker. Does not matter. Just kind of stick a screwdriver under them, lift up and wiggle. Woo, there we go. Okay, now that we got those off, the rockers are free to slide on their shafts, as you can see. So the valves that are open aren't going to because there's spring pressure on them, but they are now free to move. So next thing you're going to want to do is get a non-marring punch of some sort. You can use, an extension with a piece of rubber on the end, what have you. You can make your own tool. This, and I'm going to wrap it with a little piece of rubber on the end so it doesn't mar the rocker shaft. Be gentle. Gentle is key here. You do not need a hammer this big. I'm going to be very tender with this, so don't use this at home, guys. Do as I say, not as I do, right? Isn't that what they say? Okay, so what I did here is I just took a long extension. I put a little bit of like cardboard and paper and junk on the end of it, and then slipped a a vacuum cap over it. So this acts as a cushion, so when you're hitting this, you're not marring the metal surface. If you scratch it a little bit, don't be terrified. You're going to be fine. Everything will be okay. But you do want to try to make your best effort not to. So at this point, we're going to start removing the rocker shaft. So basically that's all we're going to do, is we're going to tap it until it's out. And if it helps you to get it out, some of these are pretty sticky. So what you can do is you can kind of wiggle the cam back and forth by putting the gear on the end and moving it with either a screwdriver or with your hand if you're a beefcake. But yeah, so basically the idea is we just want to get this rocker shaft completely out, and that will unload the cam, and then we can start removing the cam. Okay, once you get past the loaded valves, it's usually pretty easy to remove. So there we go. This is what your rocker shaft looks like. You'll notice the oiling holes for all the rockers. That keeps them nice and lubricated. So just a kind of a closer view of it. And you can also see the little slots right here where the retainers keep the rockers in place. So these shafts are the same front and rear, so you don't need to worry about mixing them up. It doesn't matter which side they go on. And the orientation is, it will only go together one way, is what I'm trying to say. So don't worry too much about which way it came in or out. It is always good policy to put it in the way that it came out, but in this particular instance, if you forget, it's not going to bite you in the butt. So, all right, now that we got that out, I am going to set all of my rockers as they came off, so we can hopefully have an easier valve adjustment. So as long as you know the orientation in which they came off the head, and what side they came off of, you'll be good to go. Luckily, I have YouTube videos to consult on this. That's not acting good. Just make sure that you do not bind your rocker and continue to hammer it. That is bad. That's almost what just happened to me, but luckily, we're good. So, another thing is, good practice, honestly, is to just go ahead and loosen all of your rocker eccentrics, which means you will have to do a valve adjustment. Quite honestly, that's the right way to do it, so it unloads your valves as much as possible. I chose not to do that because I'm kind of a cowboy when it comes to this, I guess. But all right, now at this point, you'll notice all your valves are shut. So you're good to go on that. So now you don't have to worry about touching things on the bottom side. You need to get this resurfaced anyway. That's why this video exists. So, you know, be careful with the bottom side of the head, but also it's going to get resurfaced, so don't be too anal about it. But cleanliness and being careful is always good practice when assembling engines. Okay, now, just so you guys can see it, and because I'm here, I'll remove the cam. The only thing you're going to need is two 10mm bolts, or I'm sorry, there's two 10mm bolts to remove. So the only thing you're going to need is a 10mm socket. So this right here is your cam seal and retainer plate. Go ahead and put those right here. Boop, boop. And then when your rockers are out, it is extremely easy to remove these guys. So you're going to want to get it started by very gently kind of wobbling this cam seal out. Once that's out, as you can see, you can remove your cam. Now you want to be very, very, very gentle with this. As it comes out, try to support one end of it, or the opposite end that you're pulling it from, as it goes through the cam journals. You do not want to score these cam journals. So be very gentle with it. There we go. Basically, if you don't hear any clunking and metallic noises, you did a good job. Alright, and we're out. So this right here, you can tell is an M20 B25 cam, and the way that you can tell that is because of the number of cam journals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These have 7. The M20 B27 cams are missing 3 of those. They're missing this one, this one, and this one. So you're only going to see 1, 2, 3, 4. So 7 versus 4. All right, we got this out. Let's set this down so you guys can see a nice exploded view. Okay, so this is the exact orientation. Actually, I had to flip the head to get it to sit level so you guys could see it. So this side actually goes over here. Well, this is the exact orientation, an exploded view of the M20 head taken apart. If you were going to remove the valves, I can show you how to do that in another video. We're not going to get that in depth today. We're going to take this to the machine shop and get it cleaned and surfaced. So we'll do that. But what I wanted to go over first was what I was talking about with the rocker eccentrics. These right here are rocker eccentrics. This is how the valve is adjusted. So basically, when you loosen this, it allows you to start adjusting the rocker eccentric, which is this right here. So you're going to want to stick like a very small Allen wrench in that hole with your feeler gauge between your valve surface, which is right here. So you want to put your feeler gauge right here, and that's going to go between this surface and this surface. Okay? And with this nut loose, you're going to rotate it until you get a decent, like medium drag on a 10 thousandths feeler gauge. Again, the valve clearance on these warm is 10 thousandths. Okay, now that we got it all disassembled, we're gonna run up to the machine shop and get this cleaned and decked, and we'll be right back as soon as that's done, and we'll show you how to put it back together. Welcome back. As you can see, we got our head back from the machine shop. It is very nice and pretty, much better than it was when it left. Not covered in disgusting grime and grit and grease and nasty stuff. You can see all the pretty little combustion chambers and things. If you guys are interested, make sure you check out the other video on our channel on how to build an M20 stroker. That's what this is going to be going on, so check that video out. All right, so now we have to reassemble the head. So the very first thing we're going to do is the exact opposite of install, which is putting the cam in. So before I do that, I'm going to clean off all the cam journals. Cleanliness is mucho importante. Get all these bearings nice and clean. My hands were clean before I was doing this. So we got that all cleaned off and ready. Let's flip this girl over so you guys can see what I'm doing. And you want to make sure before you put the rocker arms in, again, that you, oh, don't know where that came from. Why is that chilling there? Okay. Down. Bam. Oh, did you get it on video? Oh, cool. Okay, so what Aaron just did is used his handy dandy seal puller. Very basic tool, just has hooks on it, and it digs into the metal part of the seal here. So when you get it in, hook it on, and use the other side of that as leverage, and it pops the seal out.
That's the trick to these seals, is leverage. That's what you want to do. Flathead screwdrivers sometimes work, but only if you have a crappy seal. If you have a good one that's nice and tight like that, you're going to need something that kind of like makes the leverage at a 90 like that.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and clean out the internal surface on this. And again, that engine assembly oil is going to be pretty clutch for what we're doing here. It'll just make it go nice and easy so we don't worry about damaging the seal as we put it in. So just a little drop. Go ahead and lube her up. Since this goes in like this, you want the female portion of the seal to go towards the motor. So it's going to go just like that. So we'll press this in. You want to do it evenly. Mine's kind of going in a little uneven. Hopefully it's okay. The other thing you can do is you can get a socket the same size. So, nice big socket. The same size. It looks like I need a little bit bigger one, but you get one the same size and you put it right on there after you have it seated, and you give it a couple taps. Very gently, just kind of work the seal in around the perimeter here. And you do not want to force this. Do not be angry with it. Nice and gentle. It's very easy to damage these. Okay, cool. So we got it on. Now we're going to put our O-ring on. Boop. There we go. And again, lube it up. This is the surface right here on the cam that seals to here. So I'm going to lube the cam rather than lube the seal. I'll do a little bit on both. I'm also going to lube the O-ring. Bam. All right. Now we're going to put the cam in. So let's lube it up. Boom, 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 boom. Got nice and lubed. Put a little bit of oil in each one of these cam bearings. You just want to keep this engine from oil starving on first start. So nice and gentle, just as we were removing it. Support the cam as you go in, just nice and gently. All right, so at this point our cam is in. I'm gonna spin it just a little bit, just to kind of get the oil on the entire bearing journal. Now we're gonna take our new seal and very gently place it on. Okay, so we got our cam seal in. And we're gonna go ahead and tighten her on, and then we'll start putting the rockers in. Cam seal is on and tightened. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start assembling the rocker arms and rocker shafts. Again, as always, cleanliness, cleanliness, cleanliness. Where's my rags? All right, and since we took these off in order that we put them on the table in the order that they came off, now I know how they go on. So now we got our rocker shaft nice and clean. You want to make sure that these are all nice and clean. And what you can do so you don't get paper towel junk in there is just clean them out with some brake clean. But again, just make sure that after you do that, you lube the shaft. So now we're going to lube up the rocker shaft. And again, these are not directional. You guys can put these in either way. They are symmetrical, so either way will be fine. Go ahead and lube it up like so. And then what we're gonna do, actually before we do that, I'm gonna let that oil soak in. Now that we're gonna start to have valves opening, you wanna make sure that this head is off of the valve surface. So I'm gonna find something to put under the head and support it just from here and here. Okay, installing the rocker shafts. First thing you're gonna wanna do, put the cam gear on, and I'll show you why here in a second. So just make sure you line up the dowel with the hole in the end of the cam here. It only goes on one way, so I don't think I really need to be too specific about how I'm installing this for you guys. Also, your rotor bracket only goes in one way, so you'll feel it lock in. You do not need to final torque it right now, but we're gonna get it on there, and it's an E12. So the reason we're putting this on first is because as we slide the rocker shaft in, we're going to need to rotate the camshaft. So that way, as we slide in and we have our rocker set up, so basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna put our rocker in place, slide the cam or the rocker shaft forward, and you need to make sure that your cam lobes on the rocker shaft that you're putting in are facing downward so that they're off cam. So we're gonna go right here. And the more rockers you put in, the more difficult this is gonna be. To turn the cam, that is. Okay, so we got one. Looks like we can get away with this one as well. Back it off just a little bit. Also of note, I did lube up both the rocker shaft and the rocker shaft journals, so that way it goes on nice and smooth. All right, so we got our cam lobes down. There we go. Yes, you do want to make sure that your eccentrics are centered over the valve. It's not super critical, but it is very good practice. So try to make sure, if you've got a helper, that he helps you kind of keep them centered. And we cannot put the rocker shaft retainers on until we get all of the rockers on. Otherwise, your rocker is going to try to move with your shaft and it's not going to slide all the way in. So I'm going to grab an E12 real quick so we can rotate this cam and get it to the position it needs to be to get the rest of these in. Okay, so got the cam gear on. I've rotated it a little bit. I'm just going to keep lubing this as I go. It's always good practice. I've rotated it so that this number 4 cylinder right here, the cam lobes are facing down. So as you do this, take in mind you're going to be opening some valves here. So you're going to have to put a little bit of force on your rocker shaft here as it goes on. So, okay. Now we're going to rotate some more. Again, you want your rockers nice and centered. And then as you rotate, it will be doing things that are good. There we go. All right. So again, the cylinder we were doing is facing down on the cam lobes. So keeping it moving. Oh. Hold this on the center here. Okay. And there's another thing that you need to take mind of is that you need to get the rocker shaft all the way so that you have the shaft basically to the end of right here. So we're gonna bop this a little bit more with our homemade little tool that we use to disassemble. And once it's in, you want this right here to be vertical. Okay, so we're gonna have to spin this rocker shaft just a little bit. So right now the valves are not loaded, so that way I'm not putting too much pressure on it. And actually, should slide right in. Okay, so if you remember from the disassembly video, this is our rocker shaft retainer. So you want that line to be inboard. Right now we have it 180 degrees out. So I'm going to spin it 180 degrees so that this locks in. And we'll put this in when both rocker shafts are in. But for now, we'll get it lined up. So what you can also do is just kind of install it softly. And by soft, I mean not permanently. So that way, you know you've got it in the right position. So we'll stay right there. We're gonna start lining up rockers. Lined up, lined up. And we're gonna put this one over there. So if you're rotating it and you have a rocker arm that's not on, you wanna have it all the way off the valve so that the nut is not hitting your valve spring retainer, okay? So now that we got that ready to go, looks like we need to center 2 rockers and then we can put all of our retainer clips on. So we're gonna get the cam lobe down, okay, rocker centered. And we got one more. Rocker centered, okay. Oh, looks like we lost one. So. Okay, looks like we got them all centered. Now we can start to put the retaining clips on. Let's just go in like this, they just slide on. So as you're doing this, also take in mind that it does not matter which clips go where, so you can kind of just grab them and throw them on. They are not rocker specific. And you may have to kind of fiddle with a couple of the rockers and rotate the cam a little bit to do so as you get these on. But once you get them all on, then we'll move to the intake side, or the exhaust side rather, in this instance. It does not matter what order you do them in. Get this one off lobe so I can get that retainer on. Okay, so at this point we have our intake rocker shafts in and our intake rockers in. Now we're going to do the exact same process in the exact same way for the exhaust. So stand by and we will get back. Okay, so now that we got both rocker shafts in and all of the rocker retainers in, the final 2 things that we need to do, I've actually already done. They're pretty self-explanatory. You need to put in your rocker shaft retainer. So you get the 2 rocker shafts lined up so that the slots are lined up as best you can, and then you want to put this in and tap it in place with the hammer, and the rockers will line up kind of as you tap it in. So this is what it looks like when it's fully seated. It doesn't go completely flush, but it does get pretty close. Or at least it doesn't always go completely flush. Most of the time, yes. Lastly, you want to put in your rocker shaft seals, okay? So we had new ones, we went ahead and replaced them. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 rocker shaft seals, and when all your retainers in, that's it. You're done. You're ready to put your head back on your car. I've got this head down here ready to be painted, so I'm going to paint it up, and then we're going to get back to building the stroker. So stay tuned on the channel for that video. And as always, thank you guys so much for your support. Like, subscribe, comment, and tell us what you want to see.